When I, your humble narrator, was in graduate school in Great Britain, I had the great privilege and opportunity of spending some time at Oxford University with Sir John Keegan, perhaps the greatest military historian of all time, and someone whom I respected highly. One night, as we chatted, we were comparing what we each believed were the greatest events in history that changed the world forever. After many hours of discussion and a few glasses of single malt scotch, we both came up with a list of over 20 events. Although we disagreed with each other on a few of these events, I will present those top 10 that we did agree upon, and I have compiled these moments in history for your enjoyment that will hopefully stimulate great friendly debate. We both concluded that these events created the world in which we live today. These were the top 10, due to the fact that had these events not occurred, or had they ended differently, many of our other historical selections would have been null and void, since the conditions would have never arisen. So here we go. Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. First, the Battle of Gaugamela. Alexander the Great's long campaign against Persia had many significant battles, such as the Battle of Thebes in 335 BC, the Battle of Granicus and the Siege of Halicarnassus in 334 BC, Issus in 333 BC, the Siege of Tyre in 332 BC, the Siege of Gaza in 332 BC as well, the Persian Gate in 330 BC, Jaxartes in 329 BC, Ogdean Rock in 327 BC, the Siege of Malaya and the Hydaspes River in India in 326 BC. However, of all of these battles, the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC was probably his greatest battle, setting the stage for not only his future victories, but also establishing a strong Hellenic presence in Asia, which established cultural contacts to the Far East and expanded European trade after the Persian Empire was defeated. Alexander established an empire that would later be replaced by the Romans, who adopted much of his military and administrative genius in permanently establishing Western civilization. Number 2 is the Conquest of Mecca. The mission to take Mecca was a military campaign undertaken by the Prophet Muhammad and his companions during the Muslim Quraysh War against the Quraysh-controlled city of Mecca in late December 629 to early January 630. The fall of the city to Muhammad formally marked the end of the conflict between his followers and the Quraysh tribal confederation and established his complete authority. He destroyed the idols worshipped by the polytheists and established Islam as the official faith. Muhammad's victory over Mecca increased his followers, grew his army, and thus launched the greatest expansion of any faith, but in specific terms the Islamic faith, a wave of religious conquest yet to be matched in history. In fact, Islam conquered more landmass and created more converts in 300 years than Christianity did in almost 1,500 years. Number 3 is the Battle of Actium. This naval battle on the western coast of Greece on September 2nd, 31 BC saw Octavian win his decisive victory over Mark Antony, making Octavian the undisputed master of the Roman world. The rivalry between the three opponents, Antony, Pompey, and Octavian, was over, opening the door for Octavian becoming the first emperor of Rome, taking the name Augustus. The birth of Western civilization by the Greeks took up light-speed momentum with the Romans once the empire was established. The emperors, having almost complete and unchallenged authority, expanded the empire's borders, spreading literacy, knowledge, science, and Roman law from France and Britain to North Africa and modern-day Syria. Every nation in the Christian world benefits from the Roman period until the fall of the empire in 451. Number 4 is the Battle of Tours-Poitiers. On October 10, 732, a small Christian force of Franks, Lombards, Saxons, Frisian Danes, and Guelphs, led by Charles Martel, numbering around 15,000 to 20,000 men, against a superior Umayyad Muslim force estimated as high as 30,000 to 40,000 men under the command of Abd al-Rahman al-Ghafiqi, the Muslim governor of Cordoba, Spain. See our video on Charles Martel the Hammer with regard to this battle. The result was a victory by the Christian forces. Despite future Muslim invasions, this victory secured Christian Europe from Muslim domination and assisted in building alliances against future invasions. Had the Muslims won, there would have never been the Christian kingdoms that arose. The Catholic Church would have been abolished, and the New World, as well as the European colonies that later became independent nations around the world, would have never been established, and Islam would have replaced Christianity in Europe. Number 5 is Constantinople. On May 29, 1453, Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II finally completed a dream that his great-grandfather, grandfather, and father had failed to achieve. The Byzantine Empire had been all but conquered, with Constantinople being the last holdout, but it was strong with formidable defenses and very thick walls. Using primitive cannon, Mehmed's Muslim army managed to finally breach the walls of the capital of the Byzantine Empire, pouring their soldiers inside, defeating the defending force of Byzantine Greeks and their Italian, Sicilian, and French mercenaries under the command of
Emperor Constantine Palaeologus XI.
The city, now known as Istanbul, Turkey, opened the doors for a much greater series of Muslim invasions into Europe over the next 300 years, totally altering the social, religious, political, financial, and demographic complexion of Europe forever. Number 6 are the battles of Stamford Bridge and Hastings. And I combine these two battles for good reason. These two battles are included together because while William, Duke of Normandy, was sitting in France, waiting for the weather and wind to change in his favor to invade Saxon England, Saxon King Harold Godwinson knew what was coming, but he had a diversion. The Norwegian King Harald Hardrada of Norway joined forces with King Harold's discontented brother, Earl Tostig, and they invaded from the North Sea on September 25, 1066. The Saxons responded and defeated the invading force, killing Harold and Tostig, but at high cost. When William landed in England, word was sent to Harold Godwinson, who was returning from the coast, but the march to meet William would take 2 weeks. The Saxons were weakened, hungry, cold, wet, and many were sick, but they made the march and met the fresh, well-fed, and rested Normans at Hastings on October 14, 1066, who easily defeated them. The result was a permanent transformation of England, establishing a series of new dynasties, laws, and cultural changes that would eventually change the entire world. Number 7 is the Battle of Trafalgar, my personal favorite. The British fleet, under the command of Admiral Horatio Lord Nelson, finally encountered the combined French and Spanish fleet of 33 ships, 18 French and 15 Spanish, under Admiral Pierre de Villeneuve, which Napoleon Bonaparte relied upon to control the Mediterranean Sea and his far outposts, as well as secure his Atlantic supply routes. Nelson's fleet had trapped the enemy in the Spanish port of Cadiz for almost 2 years until Villeneuve received orders to leave Cadiz and land troops at Naples to support the French campaign in southern Italy. On October 19th to 20th, his fleet slipped out of Cadiz, hoping to get into the Mediterranean Sea without giving battle, but Nelson caught him off Cape Trafalgar on October 21st. After 5 hours, the Royal Navy had destroyed the French and Spanish fleet, utilizing Nelson's unique tactic of breaking the line, although at the cost of Lord Nelson, who died. The result established Britain as the globally dominant naval force until World War II, helping win the Napoleonic Wars and increasing the strength of the British Empire. Number 8 is the Battle of Gettysburg. Often described as the turning point of the Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg marked the Confederacy's final attempt to invade the North and alter the strategic balance. On July 1st, Confederate troops searching for supplies encountered Union cavalry west of the town, igniting a general engagement that escalated as both sides rushed in reinforcements. The Federal troops held very strong defensive positions, repulsing the Confederate attacks on Little Round Top, Cemetery Hill, and Culp's Hill. The battle reached its climax on July 3rd with Pickett's charge, a futile frontal assault that kind of violated common sense, against the Union center on Cemetery Ridge. Lee's second invasion of the North had failed, and the Confederacy would be on the strategic defensive for the rest of the war. This weakening of the Southern forces would result in an eventual Union victory and the end of slavery in the United States, but it would also be a rebuilding of the country, making it even stronger than before, putting the United States of America on the map as a world power within 2 decades. Number 9 is the Battle of Midway. John Keegan called Midway the turning point in the Pacific theater of World War II, and for good reason, because it was a battle that relied upon what he called the most important 8 minutes in history. The USS Hornet's Torpedo Squadron 8 did find the Japanese, but they were wiped out by the Japanese fighter escort without causing any damage. Torpedo Squadron 6 from the USS Enterprise and Torpedo Squadron 3 from the USS Yorktown also suffered similar fates. Only 6 of the 41 American torpedo planes made it back. However, the Japanese were so preoccupied with these attacks that they failed to notice the American dive bombers coming in behind them. It was this 8-minute timeline that saw the dive bombers hit the Japanese carriers as they were refueling and rearming their aircraft. The American bombs landed directly on the flammable fuel lines and explosives. The carriers Kaga, Soryu, and Akagi were soon sinking. The Hiryu was damaged. The next day, the Hiryu was also sunk because it had no air support. So, Japan lost all 4 of its aircraft carriers in that battle, which also removed all of their aircraft and experienced combat pilots. As a result of Midway, Japan would never recover, and their forces would be on the defensive for the remainder of the war. Number 10, and our last entry, Operation Overlord and Operation Bagration. The great losses Germany suffered at Stalingrad, Kursk, North Africa, Sicily, and Italy, all in 1943, severely weakened Hitler's forces. But they were still a formidable force, and the Allies knew it. The Allies got lucky with a few breaks by June 6, 1944. One was Hitler never believing that the Allies would not land at the Pas de Calais, Hitler not allowing the bulk of German forces to move west to be prepared for an invasion, and Hitler's incompetence when he finally learned of the invasion late that morning. But it took the greatest planning in logistics and deployment to even consider pulling off that invasion. Had D-Day failed, it would have taken the Allies at least 1 year, if not 2, recompensate and build up another force to do a direct invasion of the continent of Europe from the north. But the element of surprise would have been lost. Now, the following Operation Dragoon, the invasion of southern France, did offset and split German forces. In addition, due to D-Day, Hitler diverted badly needed divisions from fighting the Soviets to address the new threat in France. D-Day complemented the Soviets' Operation Bagration, launched in April 1944. Without Operation Bagration tying down 100 Axis divisions, D-Day would have been impossible. But D-Day helped end the war much sooner and possibly saved millions of lives. Well, these are my top 10 with Sir John Keegan, although we differed on 3. We hope you enjoyed these segments of history, and please feel free to comment and offer your opinions on what you think are the best moments in history that forever changed the course of the world. Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History. If you liked what you saw, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to assist with the ever-increasing cost of production, please consider becoming a channel member and joining our Patreon page. Please check out our merchandise store. And thanks for watching.